For over 40 years, one name has been the very definition of Halloween terror: Michael Myers, the Shape. An unstoppable bogeyman who turns quiet suburban streets into his own personal hunting ground. We all know the blank white mask, the silent stare, and the chilling way he stalks his victims. We know the story of that horrible night in 1978. But behind that iconic mask is a history filled with shocking secrets and wild behind-the-scenes stories that even some die-hard Halloween fans have never heard.
I'm not afraid.
So today, we're pulling back the curtain on decades of terror to uncover 20 things you didn't know about Michael Myers, from the strange origins of his evil to on-set secrets that will change how you see the man in the mask forever. The face of evil cost less than $2. That cold, emotionless mask, the single most iconic image in slasher history, had a surprisingly cheap origin. The original 1978 film was made on a shoestring budget of about $300,000, so the crew had to get creative. Production designer Tommy Lee Wallace went to a costume shop and came back with two options: a goofy-looking clown mask and a Captain Kirk mask modeled after William Shatner. They went with Kirk, spray-painted it a ghostly white, widened the eye holes, and shaved off the sideburns. For less than $2, they created one of the most terrifying faces in movie history. And for years, William Shatner had no idea his face was the face of pure evil. Even he has his fears. The killer's hands belonged to a woman. Remember the chilling opening scene where we see through the eyes of a 6-year-old Michael as he murders his sister? When that little hand reaches for the butcher knife, it doesn't belong to the child actor. Those are the hands of producer and co-writer Deborah Hill. The crew needed smaller hands for the shot, and Hill's were the perfect fit, making her the very first person to ever portray the murderous actions of Michael Myers on screen. The illusion of autumn Halloween is famous for its perfect fall atmosphere, but there was one big problem. The movie was shot in sunny Southern California in the middle of spring. To create that classic Illinois October look, the crew had to buy bags of fake leaves, paint them all in autumn colors, and then scatter them on the ground before every single outdoor shot. Once they got the take, they had to run out, scoop them all back up, and get ready to do it all over again for the next scene. The Shape was played by 6 different people. Nick Castle is the actor famously credited as the Shape, and he did perform in most of the scenes. But creating Michael in the first film was a real team effort. Besides Deborah Hill's hand and the young Will Sandine, director John Carpenter would often tell Castle exactly how to move and where to stand. Production designer Tommy Lee Wallace put on the costume for the closet scene, and actor Tony Moran played Michael for the split second he's unmasked. To top it off, stuntman Jim Winburn performed the big fall at the end of the film. It really took a village to raise this monster. The sound of slaughter was a watermelon. The sound design in horror is key, and that sickening thud of Michael's knife is something you don't forget. But that sound wasn't made in some high-tech studio. To get that wet, piercing stab sound, the effects team just stabbed a watermelon, over and over again. It's a simple trick that proves sometimes the most horrifying sounds come from the most ordinary places. The man behind the mask earned $25 a day. For his iconic performance that would launch a legendary franchise, Nick Castle was paid just $25 a day. He was a friend of John Carpenter's from film school and was really just hanging out on set to learn about directing. Carpenter thought he had the perfect creepy walk, so he offered him the daily rate to throw on the mask. Castle said yes, having no clue he was helping create a horror icon that would make hundreds of millions of dollars. The original mask was kept under a bed. You'd think a piece of movie history that important would be preserved in a museum or something, right? Nope. Between the filming of Halloween and Halloween 2, the original mask was stored under producer Deborah Hill's bed. Hill was a heavy smoker, and all that secondhand smoke caused the white latex to turn a dingy, yellowish color. It was a complete accident, but it actually worked perfectly for the sequel, making Michael look even more grimy and menacing. A U.S. president, almost became the shape. The Captain Kirk mask wasn't the only option on the table. Before settling on Shatner's blank stare, the crew also considered using a mask of former President Richard Nixon and one of Spock from Star Trek. They ultimately decided the Nixon mask was just too weirdly specific, and the Spock mask wasn't quite right. The modified Kirk mask was perfect because it was a total blank slate, letting the audience project their own fears onto it. His evil is rooted in ancient Celtic ritual, kind of while later films really leaned into this. The seeds of Michael's supernatural evil were planted in the sequel, Halloween 2. The writers expanded on the original story by tying the events of Halloween night to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, a time when the veil between the living and the dead was believed to be at its thinnest. This addition to the lore in the second film helped frame Michael as something more than just a man. He was now a supernatural force, a boogeyman made real by ancient tradition. Number 10. His middle name is Audrey. This terrifying symbol of masculinity actually has a surprisingly gentle middle name, Audrey. His full name, Michael Audrey Myers, is never once said in the original movie. It was only revealed in a new scene that was added for the TV version to pad out the runtime. In a hearing about Michael's case, his full name is read aloud, giving fans a bizarre piece of trivia that somehow makes the character even creepier.
Alrighty then.
Alrighty then, in the words of Jim Carrey, we're only halfway through our list, and the secrets are getting darker. If you're enjoying this look behind the mask, do us a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite horror movies. It really helps us out and makes sure you won't miss what's coming next. Now, back to Haddonfield. In-universe lore and franchise secrets. Haddonfield is a real place. Sort of the classic Midwestern town of Haddonfield, Illinois, feels like a real place you could visit, and that's because it is, just not in Illinois. The town is actually named after Haddonfield, New Jersey, which was the real-life hometown of producer and co-writer Deborah Hill. She and Carpenter borrowed the name and dropped it in the middle of Illinois to give it that any-town USA feel, making the horror feel like it could happen right next door. A horror legend says Freddy Krueger helped set the scene. Here's a piece of horror folklore that's just too good not to share. The story goes that long before he was haunting dreams on Elm Street, a young Robert Englund, yes, Freddy Krueger himself, had a small job on the set of Halloween. According to the legend, he was one of the crew members tasked with spreading all those fake painted leaves around to create the autumn setting. While it's a story that's hard to prove, the idea of one slasher icon literally setting the stage for another is just incredible.
Come to Freddy.
He was never meant to be a franchise star. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill never, ever wanted Michael Myers to become a recurring villain. Their original plan was to turn the Halloween name into an anthology series, where every year a brand new, totally unrelated horror movie set on Halloween night would come out. That's why Michael very clearly dies at the end of Halloween 2. Their attempt at this anthology idea was the third film, Season of the Witch, which has no Michael Myers in it at all. But audiences hated it. They demanded the return of the shape, so the studio gave in, brought Michael back for Halloween 4, and the anthology idea was killed for good. His evil was inspired by a real-life encounter. The inspiration for Michael's cold, soulless evil came from a deeply unsettling real-life experience John Carpenter had in college. His psychology class took a field trip to a mental institution, and there, Carpenter saw a young boy, maybe 12 years old, who just stared at him. Carpenter described the look as a schizophrenic stare, saying the boy's eyes were completely black and empty, with no emotion or humanity in them. It was a real evil stare that stuck with him forever and became the basis for the look he wanted for Michael Myers. The controversial curse of Thorn. For years, what made Michael so scary was that he had no motivation. He was just pure, random evil. But then came the fifth and sixth films, which introduced one of the most hated plot twists in horror history, the Curse of Thorn. This storyline revealed that Michael was secretly being controlled by a druid cult that forced him to kill his entire family as a sacrifice. The curse was also used to explain his superhuman strength and why he couldn't die. Most fans hated it, feeling that giving him a reason for his evil made him way less terrifying. He has a secret tattoo tied directly to that whole Curse of Thorn mess is a small but important detail, a tattoo on Michael's wrist. The thorn symbol, which looks like a strange constellation, is branded on his inner wrist, marking him as the one chosen to carry the curse. This tattoo is a key plot point in Halloween, the curse of Michael Myers, as it's the first real clue Dr. Loomis gets that there's a much bigger conspiracy at play. The sister twist was a last-minute idea. It's one of the most famous parts of the Halloween story. Laurie Strode is Michael's long-lost sister, but that was never supposed to be part of the story. It was invented purely out of desperation while writing the script for Halloween 2. John Carpenter admitted he had writer's block, and, after drinking a six-pack of beer, he just threw in the sibling twist to give Michael a reason to be hunting Laurie. He later said he regretted the decision because it ruined the terrifying randomness of the original. He once became a father. You thought the cult was weird? Get ready. In the infamous producer's cut of Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, the story gets even stranger. This version of the film reveals that the cult not only kidnapped Michael's niece, Jamie Lloyd, but they also forced Michael to impregnate her. The baby, Stephen Lloyd, literally makes Michael Myers a father. This plot point was seen as way too bizarre and disturbing for the final movie and was mostly cut, but it remains one of the weirdest what-ifs in the entire franchise. He was almost unmasked by a blonde wig. Keeping the mask consistent has always been a challenge for this franchise. During the filming of Halloween 4, the crew briefly misplaced the main Michael mask. In a panic, they had to grab a different, off-brand mask for a quick scene set in a school. The problem? This backup mask had blonde hair and a much softer, almost goofy-looking face. The shot is still in the movie, creating a hilarious, jarring moment where Michael Myers looks like a completely different and way less scary person. The music was composed in 3 days. The iconic Halloween theme is a masterpiece of horror music, but it was basically written in a panic. When John Carpenter first showed an early cut of the film to a studio executive, she told him it just wasn't scary. Determined to save the film with a good score, Carpenter locked himself in a studio and composed the music for the entire film in about 3 days on a synthesizer. That chilling theme is now considered one of the greatest film scores ever made. Conclusion. From a $2 Captain Kirk mask to a mythology that was constantly being changed by beer-fueled script changes, the story behind Michael Myers is almost as wild as the character himself. For more than 40 years, the Shape has been our definitive bogeyman. But knowing these secrets, the on-set mistakes, the abandoned ideas, and the real-world stories adds a whole new layer to the terror that stalks Haddonfield. He's more than a man and more than a myth. He's a patchwork of nightmares, both on-screen and off. Call to action. So, which of these facts surprised you the most? And is there any obscure Michael Myers trivia that we missed? Let us know down in the comments. We love getting into the lore with you all. And if you want more deep dives on your favorite slashers, be sure to check out our other videos. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another trip into the shadows. Until next time, stay safe out there. Special thanks to DRH Media Productions on 20 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Myers.